Hello. I've had a couple of choir members who've told me that they'd like to learn more about the Byzantine modal system. It's a pretty complicated subject, and I'm not qualified to teach it in great detail. So I'm calling this week's video a very, very basic and brief introduction to the Byzantine modal system. So what are we even talking about? If you aren't a choir member, you might not even be aware that there is a system of modes in Byzantine music. But I can think of two times that you probably see or hear some cues to its existence. The first one is if you're following along in a service book. For example, during Holy Week, you'll see indications of the modes of hymns in the black Holy Week book. Another indication you may have noticed is when you hear a chanter giving a little intro phrase before singing a hymn. You hear the chanter singing something like this, Ananes. Or here's another one, Na-ye. What is that? This is called an epihema. It's an indicator of which mode the hymn is in, and also sets the pitch for the hymn. It communicates this information to the other chanters, but sometimes you'll hear a chanter do it even if there are no other chanters. This little phrase helps the chanter to get the mode of the hymn in his ear, so he'll begin the hymn correctly, especially if it's in a different mode than the hymn before it. So back to the question, what does it even mean for a hymn to be in a particular mode? Well, there are a few things that the mode tells us about a hymn. The first thing it tells is which scale will be used. In Western music, we usually only talk about major and minor scales, but in Byzantine music, a hymn might use a diatonic scale, or soft chromatic, or hard chromatic. That's not even all of them. That's why if we try to play a Byzantine hymn on a piano, we're really only playing an approximation of it. Byzantine music is a vocal music, and the voice has the flexibility to sing pitches that are in between notes on the piano. The second thing the mode tells you is the bass note and the structural notes of the hymn. These are sometimes called dominant tones, dominant notes, or cadence points. In a particular hymn of a mode, most of the lines of the hymn will end on these structural notes. There are other characteristics of modes, such as common cadences and melodic attractions, but that's getting into more detail than we can cover. Since we're looking at this from the perspective of a Greek Orthodox choir member, let's look at an example that a choir member might see. Here's the music in staff notation for the Mode 1 Resurrectional Apolytikon, The Stone Had Been Secured. The translation and music I'm showing you is the work of Father Seraphim Dedes, so it's the one you'll see in Aegis Digital Chant Stand. Let's look at the top. It tells us that the hymn is in Mode 1. And see where it says Pa equals D? This tells us that as we look at this transcription into staff notation, D is our bass note. Again, since Byzantine music is a vocal music, this is just a convention. If I'm going to write the music in staff notation, I have to pick a pitch to start on, but when I sing, I can pitch it wherever I want. At the top left, this music tells us that we're using the diatonic scale. This scale is not exactly what you can play on a piano, but it's not way off from what we're used to in Western music. So it tells me that my bass note is D, and from what I already know about Mode 1, I know that the other important structural note in this notation will be G. Another thing that I know about first mode is that the note we see as B on this notation can sometimes be flat. You'll see that there's a flat on B in the key signature. The rule is that if we go up to B and beyond it, it will be a B natural. But as we come back down, it will be flat. Another time it will be flat is if we only go up as far as that note, but don't exceed it. So let's sing through this and watch for those characteristics. I said that the dominant notes are D and G, and the hymn starts right off with D, G. Pay attention to the notes at the end of each line of text, and also note what happens with the B when the hymn goes up there. The stone had been secured with a seal by the Judeans. There's the G. And a guard of soldiers was watching your immaculate body. A G again. You rose from the third day, O Lord, and Savior, granting life unto the world. We came back down to the D, the bass note. For this reason were the powers of heaven crying out to you, O life-giver. Glory to your resurrection, O Christ. Glory to your kingdom. Glory to your dispensation, only one who loves mankind. So did you see how we ended just about every phrase on either D or G? And did you see what happened with the B? In this one section, the powers of heaven, we went up above the B, and so we had a B natural, and then on the way down it was flat. But everywhere else where we hit the B, it was flat. Now let's look briefly at something else in first mode so you can see the similarities. Here's the first of the hymns called Anavathmi, or Hymns of Ascent in Matins. Listen and watch for the D and the G. When I am afflicted, hearken to my distress. Lord, to you I cry out. Ceaseless does divine longing become in those who dwell in the wilderness, outside of the futile world as they are. And it continues on from there. Well, that's as far as we're going to go for this introduction. Believe me, that is a very small tip of the iceberg about the Byzantine modal system. But I hope I've given you a little peek into what it means when we say that a hymn is in a particular mode.